Hey everyone, I'm Matthew. Thanks for joining. So today we're going to be taking a look at a 2017 Audi Q5. And one quick note, I do apologize in advance about the audio. I realized partway through my last video that my microphone wasn't actually working, so there's no need for me to be dragging that cord along. I'm working on getting a new one, so in the meantime, there may be a little bit of background noise, just like in the other videos of mine you've already watched. But alright, so 2017 Audi Q5, this is actually the 3.0 T model with the supercharged V6. This is one of the most popular vehicles that Audi makes in one of the most popular categories that's on the market today. Mid-size, crossover SUV, whatever you want to call them, especially in the premium luxury category. Coming around here to the front, you'll notice a few things. This does wear Audi's giant corporate grille. It actually wears it fairly well, in my opinion, due to the size of the vehicle. This is a 2017 model, so it benefits from all of the updates that the Q5 received with its mid-cycle refresh in 2013, such as these LED light bars that go all the way around the front headlights. I don't think they're 100% better than what it offered before. I mean, it's kind of 1/6 half dozen the other, but it is different, and it's an easy way for you to identify a 2013 to 2017 Q5 from the initial 09 to 12 model. This one has fog lights. This one does have the available bi-xenon headlights, so xenon low beam and high beam, which is a little bit dated by 2017. Most of its competitors were offering LED headlights, but again, this is actually the final year of this model. 2018 saw a completely new redesigned Q5. Again, you can barely tell the difference between them unless there was one sitting right over there for us to look at, which there's not. Sorry, no video magic. Looking under the hood, you can see that the Q5 shares its platform with Audi's main sedan lines, the A4 all the way up through the A8. All sort of sit on this same corporate architecture. The smaller A3 and Q3 share a platform with the Volkswagen Golf and the Audi TT, and then the larger Q7 in the first generation shared a platform with the Porsche Cayenne and Volkswagen Touareg. It has since migrated onto a revised version of this platform. But anyways, excuse me, why that's important is how the engine is laid out. So this engine is laid out like a traditional rear-wheel drive vehicle. You can sort of see the coil packs for the cylinders over here in red. So the drive shaft is going out the back of the engine towards the back of the vehicle, like a rear-wheel drive vehicle would. In pretty much every front-wheel drive vehicle for sale today, and even a lot of all-wheel drive vehicles, the engine would be turned 90 degrees, sending power out sideways through these front wheels. Now, why this is interesting is there is actually a front-wheel drive version of this vehicle. It's not sold in the US, but in some other world markets, there's a decontented base version of this that sends its power through the front wheels. We do actually get a front-wheel drive A4. And back before, I think it was before 2011, when the Passat went through a big change, the Passat used to also, Volkswagen Passat used to actually be a cheaper version of the Audi A4, so it shared this engine arrangement. So it actually is unique, I think. I don't think there's any other car for sale today that uses that, a longitudinal engine with front-wheel drive. But it also they do that because it works really well with Audi's Quattro all-wheel drive system. Instead of just a cheap, kind of half-assed, if we're being honest, clutch takeoff system to have a front-wheel drive system but sort of send a little bit of power to the rear wheels. This one's capable of sending a lot of its power to the rear wheels. You get a standard 60-40 split. 60% of the power is going to the back, 40% is going to the front, which is great for stability and predictability. Since it's always got that fairly even split, you're not sending all your power to the back wheels, and then when the front ones, after they've started slipping, then it starts, powering them, and you get sort of a jolt, and it further unsettles the car. But anyway, so I just thought I'd mention that. I think a lot of people don't know that about Audis, and it's one of the things that makes them unique as a company, and they're still doing this in their new platforms. They still got this longitudinal engine set up with front-wheel drive cars. This one here, so one of the great things about this Q5 is that it does have the optional supercharged V6. And you can see this big silver piece right here. You can really see it if we take this off. This is actually an Eaton supercharger, giving us 272 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. The base engine in this vehicle is a 2-liter 4-cylinder, 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, I should say. Pretty common throughout the Audi and Volkswagen lineup. There were a couple of other engines offered. You could get a turbocharged V6 diesel before Dieselgate. Those kind of went by the wayside. There was a hybrid model that I've read that it exists. I couldn't actually find a review of one or a whole lot of information about one. So I don't know if you happen to see one, good luck with it. And this engine's predecessor, from 09 to 2012, the Q5 had a 3.2 liter non-supercharged V6. But this engine it shares with the higher performance SQ5 in a higher state of tune. I think it's 354 horsepower in that application. All engines are backed up by a ZF sourced 8-speed automatic transmission, and of course the aforementioned Quattro all-wheel drive system, with the exception that 3.2 liter V6 did use an older 6-speed automatic design. Coming around to the back, overall pretty standard SUV. These do have a standard full LED taillight setup, just a standard lift gate, no separate lift glass. But we do get to see probably only two controversial things on this car. The first is this 3.0 T badge. So you've heard me mention probably too many times that this is the 3-liter supercharged version. And generally T is for turbocharging. It was always that, I don't know if you remember 1.8T Volkswagens, Audis with the 2.0T, those were always turbocharged. So what is Audi's explanation for putting a T on their supercharged vehicle? Is that it stands for mechanical, or supercharging is mechanical turbocharging. Whatever. So anyways, 3-liter forced induction V6 with Quattro. The other one is, if we open this power lift gate, I just think this looks so strange that the brake lights fully go up with the tailgate. I don't know why, that just looks bizarre to me, but there's just, it's weird looking. We do get, these actually function as brake and turn lights also to meet regulations, because if you're carrying something long and have that up, you still have to have a brake light of some sort. But it's just bizarre looking to me. But as mentioned, this is a power tailgate. There's also an optional trailering package that this vehicle does not have. Looking a bit more closely at the inside, there's good space back here. You can see this one has an optional, the optional cargo cover and rubber floor mat. But if we lift that up, you can see there's just a standard carpeted floor. There's a little cargo organizer under here, and actually a spare tire in here with this little thing here is a subwoofer. Jack kit is under this little cargo organizer thing. You can see there's good space. There's a inflator for that spare tire is in here. 12 volt reset, 12 volt outlet there. And the seats actually, the rear seat folds, and you can fold that down with these levers, which is handy if you need to put something larger in the back here. But 30 cubic feet of space here with the seats up, about 57 with the seats folded. Not the largest in the segment. You know, your Lexus RX or Cadillac XT5, something like that, is going to be overall larger. But for the European competition, this is pretty close to the top of the list as far as space goes. Looking at this back seat, there are actually a few noteworthy features. The first of which is that it actually does slide a bit. And ostensibly for, like, if you have small children or a car seat and you want to move this seat closer to you so that you don't have to constantly get out and change pacifier, give it a bottle or something like that, you can just move the seat up like that and have the rear closer to you, so it's an easy arm's reach away. It does also, of course, create a little bit more space in the back. There is nothing comes out to cover the floor space. It's just back floor stops, and then there's a little gap between the seats that stuff could fall into. So mindful of that. That would be something that would be nice if there was a little, like a spring-loaded thing that came out with the floor when the seat moved. Moving the seat back, the seats actually recline. They have, I think, they just have 2 different recline settings, but it is nice to have the option. So I've gone and I've moved this driver's seat back to where I would normally sit, and gotten back in. And space it's not super generous, but there's plenty of room here for me to fit. Headroom is actually not bad, even with the standard panoramic sunroof on this model. There's still plenty of clearance between my head and the roof, even if I sit all the way back. With the front passenger seat all the way back and this seat in its moved into its forward position, you can see these seats actually almost touch. So the range of adjustability in the seats is quite amazing. And appreciated. It's not a super large vehicle. It's definitely something that would be large enough to put into family duty, or for regularly hauling passengers. The fact that it maximizes use and your options for using that space is definitely appreciated. Further along that note, most vehicles this size would just have a single folding rear seat. This one, as I showed you earlier, actually looks like a double folding, but it's actually a 40-20-40 split seat. This middle part here comes down and makes an open pass through to the back, ostensibly for carrying skis. If you like skiing, Audi has always been really great about accommodating your skis in the vehicle. It also makes a nice divide, like if you've got children and they need their own separate space, you can put this down and it creates more of a solid barrier for them, rather than this dinky little center armrest thing, which does have a cup holder in it. No cup holders on the back of that, but it's nice to have options. And this, I found this is actually very hard to get. There it goes. Can be difficult to get back. Can be difficult to get back in once you've opened it. If you need to fold these seats from up here instead of in the back, this same lever that reclines them on the back does fold them all the way forward. The front seats do need to be up just a touch for these to fold, and it doesn't make a completely flat floor. There is, and you can't really tell, but there is a gap here in the seats, but not perfect, but very usable. A little bit high up here. It would be nice if these maybe flipped forward or something, just for a little bit more extra space. Since you can see it a little bit better with me out of the way, you can see the 2 air vents back here, as well as vents under the seat, each of the front seats, with the temperature control. Again, like just a little slider bar, and of course you can open or close the fan vent passageway thing. There is a cigarette lighter plug back here. There's blanks for other things. I believe these would probably be heated seat buttons for these rear seats that this model does not have, and possibly something else. It's a German car, so there's a long list of options. If you have some money that you don't wish to have anymore, they will gladly take it from you and put some more stuff in your car. Hey, so when I was going by the other day and reviewing the footage that I took, I realized I didn't like some of it and I forgot to talk about some things, so quick change and we're back. This center hump here is very marked. So if you do have a third person here, you have to sit like this with your feet almost level with the bottom of the seat. So that's not very comfortable. So either you've got to share space from your 2 people on the side, or you've got to have your feet way up here, which is still going to require your toes to go out in the side. So comfort for 2 people is great. 3 people is a bit more of a challenge. But again, this is not a large vehicle. This is a smaller mid-size. So for knowing that fact, space is actually pretty good back here. Checking out the wheels here for a minute. These are actually the upgraded 19-inch wheels that come with the S-Line on the 3-liter supercharged model. There are, of course, several wheel options. These are not my favorite, but they're not bad. They're 19-inch, 235 section, 55 height tire. So good, they look decent. They've got enough sidewall that you're not constantly crashing over the bumps. But there are other options available if these aren't really your thing. So having a look here at the spec sheet before we get in the car, you can see 2017 Q5 3.0T. It's interesting, they actually don't put on, so Audis are sort of, their main submodel is Premium, Premium Plus, and Prestige. And you actually don't see this on here anywhere, which I find interesting. This model is the mid-level Premium Plus edition. You can only get the base Premium on the 2-liter Turbo 4. Either of the 6s require you to step up to Premium Plus, and if you want Prestige, you have to get the 6. You can't get the Prestige model, which is the top trim with the 4. But anyway, so this is a mid-level Premium Plus with just a few big options on it. You can see white is a $575 option, which I find interesting. This gray interior, which I'm not crazy about, there's no extra charge. Technology package, which the main takeaway from the technology package is this Bang & Olufsen sound system, which is pretty good, but not great. It doesn't get very loud, which I don't like. I like things to, I don't like to be able to hear myself sing when I'm singing along with the radio. Of course, that color driver information display that's between the tachometer and speedometer, which is so nice. Front and rear parking sensors, which is great, with the rear view camera, which on the new one would be standard. Oop. Sorry about that, knocking my tripod. Okay, luxury package is upgraded leather, ventilated seats, and some more leather around the interior, especially on the walls, on the doors and above the instrument panel, which is strange. Ventilated seats are extremely nice, as well as the extra lumbar. The leather on the doors is appreciated. This Milano leather, I don't know if you can see, let's see, where am I looking? What you can see in here. Honestly, if I didn't know that this was a real leather seat, I would kind of think that this was vinyl. So I don't know why they're charging extra for this. It feels a little bit like tacky and grippy like vinyl would. It's not soft like a high level leather. So yeah, little secret, I prefer vinyl in all cars, even to cloth, just because just a good high quality vinyl like you would find in an entry level Mercedes or Audi. It wears well. I had it on my E-Class, which had, at 200,000 miles, the seat still looked pretty much brand new. There was a little bit of degradation in the actual foam in the seat, but they close enough to look brand new, which I was just astounded by. And these, you can't see the driver's seat over there, is actually showing, let's look at just a little bit of cracking already in the driver's seat at not even 15,000 miles, not cracking, excuse me, but just perforation starting to develop, which eventually will be cracks and things. So for leather that is this mediocre of a quality, and just to already be wearing like that, I don't know. So again, as you can see, this car, most of the options are mechanical. It just has that big engine, and then just a handful of the options. No, it doesn't have the adjustable suspension or the adaptive cruise control or anything like that. It's just a good, strong mid-level Audi with the options that matter. So getting in the vehicle and having a look around, again, everything looks to be of a very high quality. I will go ahead and point out this wood. It's sort of an open pore type concept. It's not a flat glossy wood, which does, a lot of Q5s do come with this. This is sort of a recent addition towards the last couple years of the run. But I really appreciate this. I really like this. The one thing I will note about it is, as you're driving the car, you don't really see, there's not a lot of wood in your line of sight. It's down here in the center stack, over here on your door, and then there's some over there on the passenger dash and door. But there's nothing, there's a lot here where there's none of that great wood that they have. So that's one thing I think they could have found somewhere in here to put like a little piece, I don't know, just so you could see it while you're driving. Typical Audi steering wheel. This one actually does not have the flat bottom steering wheel. There was an option for a sportier one like from Audi's performance cars that you could get, but I think this is fine. It feels good in your hands. It's a good size. It looks nice. Since we're already looking at the instrument cluster, this is probably one of the nicest things in the cabin, which is great because it's something that you look at every time you drive the car. It's been around, I mean, this has been around for years and years on Audis, and I have no qualms with that. One thing you'll notice, they used to do this really quirky thing where they added a 0 to each one of these, so it was 10, 20, 30, 40, and it was just times 100 for the tachometer. So now they've given up trying to be different, I guess, and are just doing the same thing that everyone else is doing with the single digits times 1,000. This information display in here is actually super handy, and I found out that it does something that I can't cover that up, that I always really appreciated in my Mercedes. So if I use the control for it is actually here, so you can change the screen. Let's see if I can get you to see it with this little, I don't know why they call it reset, but it changes your settings in there, and then this button here on the end changes the information displayed, and that is focusing on all the wrong things. Okay, so here we'll just focus on this, and I'll do the controls over here. So you can see the little red 1, and then the 2. So 2 is your lifetime, or sorry, not your lifetime, since you choose to reset it. It just keeps counting and counting and counting every time you get in the car. As you can see, this one has never been reset. It's got the same miles as the car has, which is kind of handy. If you got in one of these used, you saw that this matched up. You could see how many hours the engine's been running for, what the vehicle's lifetime fuel economy is. So this one's lifetime is 21.5. If you switch over, this tells you what things are currently eating up gas and how much fuel you're wasting on various accessories. I don't really care too much. And then this one is just to prioritize the speedometer and just have a few things that you can scroll through here. But one is the one that I really like because it resets it resets itself. So if you get in the car, start the car, take your trip, when you're finished with your trip and cut the car off, if you get in again and start it within 2 hours, this keeps counting. If you leave the car sit for more than 2 hours, it automatically resets. So I like that. For Mercedes, their similar one, they did it. Theirs was a 4 hours. So if you use the car didn't use the car for 4 hours, it would reset. But it's handy. It's say like you're driving along and you're going to somewhere new that you're going to be going to a lot, and you want to know how far away it is or how long it takes you to get there, and you realize halfway through the trip, crap, I forgot to see, what my mileage was, what exact time I left. You can just scroll through this, assuming you hadn't used your car in 2 hours, and see like, oh, okay, it's this many miles away, or it's going to take, I've been in the car this long for this trip, and then hopefully you'll remember when you get there to actually look at it. That's the other half of that equation that's hard to remember. But then if you remember after you're there and it hasn't been 2 hours, go back to your car, fire it up and check. So I find that really handy, and especially for the fuel economy, it's nice if you do. I think the 4 hour reset, I appreciate that a lot more. Or I think that's a little bit better fit just for me. So that way, if you've been driving around all day, and you pull into the garage at night and you're like, holy crap, I've been in the car over 3 hours today and I haven't even made a trip or anything. I've just been driving around doing errands. So I just think those are nice things to have and are worth having a trip computer for. So zooming back out, there's not a whole lot of controls here on the steering wheel. Volume, voice controls, navigation, and this is like a station. You can see it's a station select and a radio mode. Just your standard rain sensing windshield wipers with the rear wiper. It took me a minute to figure out this rear wiper situation. You actually push the thing to act. That's what that is trying to tell you to do. Okay, my regular windshield wipers just came on. Cruise control is also similar to Mercedes. You do have to actually hit the set button. Unlike Mercedes, you just put it up or down and it just grabs whatever speed you're at. This one you have to hit set. And of course, headlights. No sort of automatic high beams or anything, just standard headlight turn signal arrangement. Of course, the aforementioned headlight knob. There are front and rear fog lights. And I do like that they have the rear on a separate button, so hopefully people won't be using them all the time when they shouldn't. Coming over here, of course, we got a full navigation system. This is a little weird to me that it's offset. That's not a visual trick. It is actually a square screen in a canted rectangle. Why? I don't know. I guess it's for style. I think it's supposed to mimic the headlight of the car, if I had to guess, but it's offset. This speaker is also offset. I think it's supposed to trick your eye into thinking that this is angled to the driver more. It is angled a little bit, but not much at all. I don't know what they were going for there. This very prominent open button here beside the CD player, which, oh, my hand's over my face, which is a very the CD player, very much a throwback in 2017. Takes you to another throwback, so you can add music into the system through an SD card. And you can also put in a SIM card, just like the SIM card for your cell phone in here, and it will actually do like a wireless hotspot thing, but it will use whatever data you put into it. You see a row of controls here. Hill descent control, which is funny in what is essentially an Audi A4 hatchback with a little bit of a lift. But it could come in handy for someone. Of course, traction and stability control off, parking sensors off. This vehicle does have engine stop-start, which I'm a fan of. I use that. I'll show you that a little bit when we're going. I always leave that on. These two buttons, this would be for the hybrid system on the hybrid model that they may or may not have sold here. I can't tell for sure. And for Audi's Drive Select system, which is an optional adaptive suspension that this vehicle does not have. Climate controls, so we got heated seats and ventilated seats. You can actually run the vents for the seat while you're doing the heating element, which is cool. And further cool is it actually remembers this the next time you get in the car. So if I were to cut this off, go into a store and come back, these would still be on just like this. I'm gonna move this gear shifter back out of the way so we can see this a little bit better. Of course, dual zone climate control is nice. When you turn it, it comes on up there. You will notice, so there's a button for the fan, and if I push that, I'll show you on the screen, it actually brings up the fan speed, and so you turn what was previously the temperature dial in order to adjust the fan speed, which I find very interesting. It's the same if we look down here at the mode man button. So we hit the mode button and it actually adjusts up here. It is interesting that you can adjust the two sides, the mode on the two sides independently. I guess that's handy. I just, to leave it, set it auto, do what you need to do. All right, so now getting into the a little bit complicated stuff. So this is the control station for Audi's MMI, their multimedia interface, which is basically the fancy name for the navigation screen. So you can see there's several things. This is the main control wheel, so you can hear the clicking for that. There's a few hard keys here for things that you use all the time: navigation, your phone, radio, or media for which would be like Bluetooth audio, or if you happen to be using one of those SD cards, that would also be the media button. And there's four interesting sort of soft keys here, and they correspond, let's pull up navigation. So these four keys correspond to whatever is listed at the corner of the screen. So if we need, let's see, if we want to go to like navigation settings, we would push this bottom right key down here and it's going to pull up our settings. So that's interesting. Navigation system is good. The radio, I like the radio setup. Excuse me. So we've got XM radio, of course, all of our XM stations that we can scroll through. If we want to change, so the top key for band here, so if we change to FM, hit that, you get a nice list of stations that are available that the car has decided have a strong enough signal to play. Let's see, I can't remember. I don't actually know. There is a way to just do like a scan through them, but I don't know how. I trust the car's judgment for what is and isn't a strong station in here. But yeah, nothing really to report. Everything sort of works as advertised. There is, interestingly, there's a dedicated car button down here, but you can't actually do that much with it. So like vehicle settings, just a few little things here, you know, like your air conditioning, you can sync. It's interesting. So this is dual zone, so you can change each one. If you want to sync them together, you have to go all the way through to this menu, go to synchronization, and hit to sync them. Usually, a lot of systems just have a dedicated button for that, but Audi was really into saving space here for some reason. But yeah, that's about it. There's of course the Bang & Olufsen sound system is good, but not great. Not a bad upgrade, but not worth thousands and thousands of dollars for sure. This center stack, I mean, this black plastic is really cheap and slippery feeling, and it carries on up in here a little bit into your sight line around the vent, at least the vent, and throughout here there is some nice brushed aluminum look stuff to sort of break up what's otherwise just some cheap plastic. But overall, a very nice looking interior, very well done in my opinion, comfortable place to be. A few nits to pick. So this MMI interface, this is our interface for the navigation system, is right here, right in front of the cup holders. So if you always have a beverage with you, and especially if you use these larger 32-inch drinks or like a Tervis tumbler, they're kind of tall and they kind of get a little bit in your way of using this knob and this whole setup here. So I mean, you can work around it if you just hold your hand up instead of laying it out. But I think that's a little aggravating, a little annoying. This is our engine start stop button, which I don't think, oh, there you can kind of see it. Usually those are up here. In the dash, it's a little odd that it's down here, but again, I think if this is your vehicle, you get used to it. There is good storage in here, so there's a cigarette lighter and an ashtray here. Apparently this is a coin slot. Seems kind of useless. It's not deep enough to like keep credit like cards, like a badge or something in, and I feel like if you had coins they would just fall out anyways. There is a nice storage bin here in the middle. You can't really see too much in there. It's not super deep, but it is useful to have. And this pin holder, I like that. That would probably be where any change you have would end up. So this vehicle does have a backup camera. Oh, I'm over my face. So looking at the the shifter, I like it. It's it feels good, and it does, you know, you put it in drive, leave it in drive, put it in park. I appreciate those. One nit to pick is when you put it in reverse, it takes a little while for the reverse camera to come on. So I put it in reverse now. And that's, so if you're like doing a 3-point turn or something, that's actually kind of a long time. Usually they're pretty instant. So that's no fun. And additionally, if we turn some music on, when you put it into reverse, music's gone. And you can manually turn it back up, but you have to do that every time. That could possibly be a setting that I didn't come across, but I don't know, sometimes it's just a bit of an annoyance, especially that it goes all the way down. You know, maybe dim it a little bit, but let me have my music. Storage in each of the doors is actually pretty good. These are a fairly deep pocket, and each door also does have an auxiliary cup holder that's actually decent. It cup wobbles around a little bit, but it won't fall, even a tall cup that was full. So that's good. So there's plenty of cup holders, and it sort of frees you up from having to use these two. And you can use those as just cell phone junk storage or whatever, and to leave you space to actually use the navigation interface. Alrighty, so getting going with the drive. This vehicle, if you've ever driven an Audi before, there will probably not be a lot to shock you with the way this vehicle drives. For better and for worse, it is very textbook Audi, which most of that is a good thing. It's actually very sporty, a lot more so than you would think for just a standard upper level midsize SUV. It handles great. Of course, it's got plenty of power. That's the good thing about having a big engine, is it goes really fast. But yeah, I was actually a little bit surprised by just how well this thing does handle. Unfortunately, there is a bit of a toll in the ride with that. So this is the mid-level suspension tuning in these. So getting the larger 3-liter supercharged V6 locks you into the S-Line package, which one of the things that includes is a firmer suspension. It also dictates your wheels and a couple of bits of trim on the inside. There's a second level S-Line package that's also available that ups your 19-inch wheels to 20-inch wheels, gets you that flat bottom steering wheel that I mentioned this doesn't have, but it's not necessary, and of course we don't have it, so I'm not going to review it. For power, so one of the great things about a supercharger versus a turbocharger is that there's not really such thing as supercharger lag. So turbos can be a little bit laggy. Even modern, fully up-to-date ones, there's always a little bit of lag. They've done made really great strides in tuning it out, but it's always there to some extent. With a supercharger, you don't get that. It's very linear power. One of the demerits is that turbochargers tend to add a lot of low-end torque. Once it's on boost a little bit, you've really got a lot of power down, some even as low as like 1500 RPM. This is not like that, but you're never going to feel like you need more power in this vehicle. If you are at too low of an RPM, the transmission is quick to grab a lower gear or 3 to get you the power that you need to go. 0 to 60 in this is about 5.5 seconds, which is really pretty quick. If you need to go quicker, that SQ5 is just under a 5-second 0 to 60. And even the base 2-liter Turbo 4 is like between 6.5, maybe 7 seconds 0 to 60. So there's no such thing as a slow Q5, at least not a North American spec one. And even if you are looking at one of these, and you're debating between the 3-liter 3.0T and the full SQ5, if you don't really care too much for the extra, the extra firm suspension and the quad exhausts and all those things that come on the SQ5, this engine is exactly the same as an SQ5. I think I did a little bit of research on it, and there's like one extra cooler in the radiator that the SQ5 has that you could easily add yourself, and 99% of drivers would probably never need it. But you are just some software, this vehicle is just some software away from taking its 272 horsepower up to 354 or even more, if you want to start getting into little light mechanical changes. So it's crazy how easy it is to take this engine to 400 horsepower if you feel the need. Like, we're literally talking like $2,000. So yeah, that's on the table. 99% of buyers won't do it, and you don't really need. In driving this thing around town on the highway, there's not been a single situation where I was like, gosh, if only I had a little bit more power. This thing absolutely has plenty of power, but the need for more is ever insatiable, and it is there if you want it. Getting into so this has the ZF 8-speed transmission that is has gotten to be ubiquitous across the automotive industry, and for good reason. It's an absolutely fantastic transmission. For some reason, Audi sort of botched the tuning of it just ever so slightly, in my opinion. It's kind of jerky at low speeds. Like, it almost feels like you're driving a dual clutch transmission without a torque converter. Once you're on the go, it's fine. It shifts quickly, smoothly, right when you think it should. But just when you're doing low speed, like stop and go traffic, in a parking lot, it feels like the torque converter is always locked up. It's just a little bit jerky like that. And when you're slowing down to a stop, you can kind of feel it downshifting through the gears more than you expect to in an automatic. So I don't know why that is. It does kind of detract. But I mean, it's nothing that would ever make me think, gosh, I really don't want one of these. It's just a minor little thing that you probably mentally would get used to it and wouldn't even notice it after a while. But it is just one of those little things that isn't quite as luxury as you would think it should be in a vehicle like this. But about the only other thing, other than the ride, so the flip side of that great handling is that the ride is a little choppier than you would expect, and the brake pedal doesn't have a good feel to it. It's kind of hard to modulate exactly how much stopping power you want, and it just has kind of a wooden feel to it. I don't know. But even all three together, those are still a very minor, more of an annoyance than anything. But see, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling each gear as we're slowing down here, and we're not even in sport mode. We're just in standard mode right now. Which, now that I think about it, now we're in sport mode. But there are something to note. Looking at our features, so one of the things that strikes me as the most odd that this vehicle doesn't have is any sort of automated emergency braking. Any premium vehicle in 2017 should have that, especially one from a mainline automaker like Audi. Granted, they didn't go, it's optional. Adaptive cruise control is an option on this vehicle. This one just happens to not have it. But you would think that some sort of automated emergency braking is now these days standard across the line in like Toyotas and Hondas and things. Something in 2017 should have been on this vehicle. But I guess Audi just figured we're doing a full redesign for 2018. We're just not going to bother. But it is kind of shocking to not see it. We do have blind spot monitor in these integrated into the side view mirrors, and the side view mirrors in this thing are gigantic. It almost gives it kind of a Dumbo look from outside, but they're super useful inside. You can see a long way back, you can see a long way over. It's nice to see that design compromise being made, because usually you get stuck with teeny tiny little side view mirrors because the designers didn't like the look with a big useful side view mirror. You can definitely tell through some of the twisty stuff that this is just a tall Audi sedan with a hatchback, which is one of the nice things about this class of vehicle. There's quite a few others that are also, they're not really truck-like SUVs, they're based on their car maker's car platform, and they're just tall sedans like this, the Audi F-Pace, the Jaguar F-Pace. I believe the BMW X3 is as well, the Mercedes GLC, but there's a lot of tall sedan hatchbacks in here. Granted, this is taking the place in Audi's lineup of what the A4 Avant, the A4 station wagon used to be. I would much rather have the wagon, just it's less weight and it brings that center of gravity way down closer to the ground for even better handling. But considering how heavy this thing is and how high we're sitting off the ground, this thing handles really great. And it has good steering feel. It's a very responsive wheel. It tells you exactly what you're doing. I have very few complaints. I mean, for something taking into consideration what we're working with, I have very few complaints for this thing actually driving. And there are even further better handling, better performing ones on the market if you want. So I almost forgot one of my favorite parts, which is to do a hot 0 to 60 and then back to 0. So let's check it out. This thing launches hard. It, like pulling out into traffic, when you step on the gas, it pulls away faster than some much quicker vehicles that I've driven in the past. Part of that is thanks to that supercharger and the Quattro all-wheel drive system. I don't know what the rest of it is, but it pulls out quick. So that is a great thing. Forgot about the braking, but oh well, the brakes are okay on this. But yeah, for as far as you know, weaving in and out of traffic, if you've got to pull out real quick onto a road, you can be going 40 miles an hour in a split second. There's some, I've pulled out in front of, like, thinking, oh gosh, I can probably make it pull out in front of them. And I look back and the car I was worried about being in front of is like 1/8 of a mile behind me. So that's really handy. I can't overstate enough. If you're buying one of these, I'm sure, hopefully I'll be able to try out the 2-liter turbo at some point, but this engine, I think this is the one to get. I'm a huge diesel fanatic, but if you're just not real big on diesel, you just rather have a gas car, it would be hard to overlook this in this category. Probably be more reliable than the BMW X3. The only two that I would be really really check out more than this would be this one's faster, sportier, slightly smaller, more expensive cousin, the Porsche Macan. Is actually built off this platform, but again, it's turbocharged, so you lose just a little bit there. And then the Jaguar F-Pace, which is a little bit bigger than this, but it also uses a strong supercharged V6. So we do have a automatic engine stop-start system on this car. I like it. I'm a fan of the technology. I leave it on. There's a very prominent off button here on the dash that it leaves it off it leaves it off for good. You don't have to redo it every time you start the car. So if it's something that annoys you, just turn it off. One of the things that I like about this system in particular is you can actually somewhat with your brake pedal use modulate how it's working. If, for say, you pull up to a stop and you know you're going to just be stopped for a second, if you just lightly push the brake just enough to stop the car, it'll keep the engine going. Whereas if you give it a good shove, you know, it'll turn the engine off. So I just like that you get choices like that. I just happen to know that BMW doesn't give you the choice. If you are stopped at all for any reason, it's going to cut the engine off if it thinks it should. So I definitely like that Audi at least seems to a little bit let you choose and manipulate it if you want it off or not. There is probably, so in addition to that adaptive cruise control that we don't have here, probably the other big option that we don't have on this vehicle is what's called Audi Drive Select, and it is an adaptive suspension system where you can choose, you get a comfort mode, a sport mode, eco. It just sort of changes all the modes in the car, and we don't have that. It would be interesting to test that out. You know, it may have a comfort mode that sort of erase some of my qualms with the ride in this vehicle, or it might not. It might only make it even firmer from here. But it's something that I would expect a lot of 3.0Ts probably have those two options on them. So one of the things I actually love about this vehicle, yeah, I mean, of course I know the owner, and I know that her husband had an Audi that he really loved. So when it was time for her to get a new car, after he passed, she went to the Audi store, and I know exactly what she told them. I want the SUV, it needs to have the big engine, and I don't want all that crap on it. Just give me a plain one. And so here we have a relatively low option 3.0T, because most people if you care enough to pay for the bigger engine in a luxury car, you're going to have all the extra baubles and bolt-ons and things that they can think of to throw at it. But this one is actually very restrained in pricing, but it has just the things that it needs to make it feel like a really nice car. Ventilated seats, well, I wish I could say the upgraded leather in theory is, but it just feels like vinyl. But yeah, there's a couple things, minus the automated emergency braking. The navigation system, you can tell it's a dated system, but it actually still works really well. So I don't mind anything about it. And you know, it does have your Bluetooth audio and phone and stuff in it as well, which I feel like is most of what people use these things for. One thing I'm about to show off, well, you probably won't really be able to see it. This thing has a shockingly tight turning radius for a vehicle that powers its front wheels. I would expect even a rear-wheel drive vehicle of this size to take a little bit wider to turn, because it's actually, this is a pretty wide vehicle. It almost strikes me as being a little bit square, just because it is short lengthwise for an SUV, but it's very wide, kind of shockingly so. Like, you've got a lot of space here between the front seats. So that tight turning radius was definitely something that I was not expecting to find. But just goes a little bit further in making this just almost a perfect everyday vehicle. You know, all of us these days just have stuff that we're taking around with us. We need something that's easy to park. Something that's too long is annoying. So final thoughts on the Q5. I was actually impressed. I kind of felt like I was going to be impressed, because, you know, I mean, it's an Audi. It's not like it's a third-rate brand anymore. You know, Audi's come a long way over the past 2 decades. But this is, I mean, it did everything that I thought it should do and more. You know, it's got a lot of, it makes really good use of the space that it takes up. It's got good cargo space, good rear seat passenger space. The front seats are good. Would like to see some higher quality leather, especially for the upcharge. But that's a small nit to pick. It drives great. It's very comfortable on the interstate. Turns a nice low 2200 RPM at 80 miles an hour. So you can get to decent fuel economy. I mean, this one's got a lifetime 21.5. I've got like 24 just in my, you know, what little driving I've done over the past week or so with it. So yeah, just a very well done package, very well rounded. Not a sports car for sure, but it drives well. It's very useful, and yeah, high marks. Definitely recommend checking one of these out if you're in the market for a vehicle. I do think sort of searching out one with a 3-liter, either the 3-liter engines, if you want to deal with the diesel and get the fuel economy, or this would be a worthwhile upgrade over the standard 4-cylinder. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all back soon.